Well. Welcome back once again, everyone. So on the community, the NoCD community, by the way, this webinar brought to you by NoCD. NoCD, a downloadable app you can get through Google Play or iOS. Check us out. Free download, by the way. And if you're looking for teletherapy across, well, the United Kingdom or the Australia or the Canada or the US of A, we got that. And for those of you here in the US, we do have a good deal of insurance coverage as well, too. So check us out. Now, one of the things we have is the largest online community of people with OCD in the world through NoCD. And welcome to all of you so far who are joining us tonight for our weekly, I'd say fireside chat, but I don't have any fireplace. It's upstairs, so I've sort of pseudo fireside chat maybe. Oh, wait, I have all of you on that screen over there, and I'm looking that way when actually I should probably be looking this way because you're right here. Hello, everyone. That's called being more of a professional right there if you do it the right way. Anyway, lots of things on the community this week about what's going on in the world. You know, we've got some things going on the other side of the pond there toward the west with Russia and Ukraine and everything like that. So just wanted to, first of all, take a couple of moments. If any of you have family, friends, relatives, anything going on over there, my best to you and to them. And gosh, we sure do hope for their safety for everybody. Obviously, a situation like this is a stressor. And of course, OCD sure does love a stressor, right? I mean, it's one of OCD's favorite things in the world is a good stressor, because once we have identified a good old stressor going on out there, we can then definitely take a look at how OCD would like to take advantage of that stressor. So it could be anything from, hey, what if we go to war, and what if we don't have any food later on, or what if gas gets so expensive that I won't be able to afford it, or what if I heard today people were afraid, what if there's a run on the banks, right? And the dollar descends into chaos and all of these things. So just a fair warning. Let's first of all watch our sources of truth, right? Beware of anyone who tells you, well, they said, without telling you who they is. I've never been a fan of they said, because I don't know who they is, and therefore I don't trust who they are, because I have no idea who they are, and why should I believe anything that they say if I don't know who they are? I mean, that just makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, that I would listen to who they are. So first and foremost. But do we really have to, listen to everything that everyone else is saying? Or can we just maybe make some decisions of, I will find one news source, and let's admit there are some politically charged news sources on both ends of the spectrum. So I will find the most neutral news source that I can, one that doesn't lean one way or the other. And if I really want to listen to the news and what's going on, I will do one program for no more than a certain amount of time. And that's what I will do daily. And that's what I'm going to have to limit myself to, so I don't go down the rabbit hole of just, oh my gosh, look at all these things going on, and now I have to get more and more information and more news, because I find it just kind of depressing. I'll tell you, when I was driving to work back in the day, I was definitely listening to the news a lot, and I didn't realize really on my drives how much of a stressor that really was until I started working from home here. And I don't listen to it so much anymore, barely at all. And I find myself a lot calmer in all of those kinds of things as well too. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there and hope all of you are safe and secure. Again, your families are safe and secure. Know that those of us here at No CD are thinking of all of you and hoping the best for all of you and your loved ones. All right, well, I guess we can jump into some questions. NP says, hey, Dr. McGrath, just wanted your advice. I've been in consistent therapy for over a year now. Since I relapsed with OCD, I'm doing really well and progressing every day. However, I'm getting tired of going to therapy every week. My therapist thinks it's important to continue therapy and continue to work with other exposures on my list. When is enough enough? I'm getting burned out. NP, I think that you've got to have some say in that as well, too. Obviously, if you getting burned out is happening, that's the last thing I would want in therapy. So a lot of times when people start to feel like they're doing really well, we can test the waters. And that's what I do a lot of times. Say, what if we meet every other week? Or what if we meet once a week still, but it's only for, say, 45 minutes or half an hour instead of an hour or something like that. And I've definitely worked out wean off programs with people, because here's my goal. INP, if you were my patient, I would hope to never see you again for the rest of your life at some point in time. Now, I kind of joke about that because there's a lot of people that are on my caseload that I see a couple of times a year as some check-ins, right? Just to make sure things are going well. They know that they can reach out to me and everything, but ultimately, I don't want people on my caseload weekly for a very long time, because I want them out there living their life, challenging themselves, doing the things that they need to do to get rid of their OCD the best way they can without having to use me as a safety behavior or something of that nature. So, NP, I think that it's something that you could say. I mean, if you're getting to the point, NP, where you're deciding, I'm not going to go to therapy anymore, and you told that to your therapist, maybe they would be more willing to say, okay, let's figure out the way that we can do this and wean this off without just cold turkey stopping it. We know that that's not great for medication, and I don't know that it's a great idea for therapy as well too. So I think that you could work out a deal with them to come up with a solution that is mutually working out for both of you. Mez says, hi, Dr. McGrath. I know OCD doesn't go away completely, but are there times where the symptoms are less intense and there isn't as much thoughts? Of course. Does it vary? Like, can you have months without any thoughts and then you come back, or then they come back? Also, hi from Australia, and thank you for everything you and NoCD do for this illness. Well, welcome, Mez. I hope all is well there in the land of Oz. Mez, there are points in time where there are people who are doing really well with their OCD and may go a great period of time without really noticing much of it. Or if they do, that they're able to just be like, yeah, whatever, and move along. And then there might be a stressor that comes up that kind of brings it back into the forefront. The goal always in any of those situations is to make sure that you're doing one very big thing, and that is that you're consistently doing your ERP. You're consistently challenging the things that you need to challenge in order for you to make sure that your OCD isn't going to be having a significant impact on your life, right? So, Mez, great on you. I'm glad the symptoms are less intense. I'm glad that there isn't too many thoughts. Hopefully, and yes, you can definitely get to that point in your life where that's happening. I never talk to people about OCD going away completely, as you said, because I've not seen that happen. But I've definitely seen people who say, yeah, I got OCD, but it just doesn't really bother me anymore, because they've really learned how to recognize it and how to challenge it and how to move on. And I definitely believe you can get there. So good luck with that. Steve James says, you talk about the card in your wallet a lot, and you're not afraid of what happens in the afterlife. Someone with scrupulosity. Are you not afraid of what happens in the afterlife? Well, Steve, I have no idea of what happens in the afterlife. There are multiple different religions that talk about it. There's multiple different belief systems. I have no idea about what's going to occur, Steve, in the afterlife. So therefore, for myself, I don't find that it's worth tons of time to be totally afraid of, because I might do one thing that satisfies one belief system, but it couldn't go against the belief system of another group. Now I've got to decide which group is right and which is wrong. And then I could spend, years and years just researching on which of the groups is the right one or the wrong one as well, too. Now I know, and I'm going to warn against people, don't come on here preaching about your group is right or wrong or anything like that. That's not what we're here to do, right? Everyone has their various belief systems or lack of belief systems, and that's totally appropriate, and all of you can have those. This is not a forum for talking about which one is right or wrong, because for as many of you think yours is right, there's that many other people out there who think theirs is right. And that's kind of difficult when you've got two different people arguing about which one is the right one, right? So I don't know what happens in the afterlife. I can't even guarantee that there is an afterlife. I just don't know. I know that belief systems say that there is, and others say that there is not. So I kind of do my thing. And, I also never personally talk about my own belief system and what it is or what it is not, because I would never want that to influence therapy for people as well, too. I know that there are times that people will want to say, oh, well, if you don't believe the same thing that I believe, then how can I see you as a therapist, right? Believe me, and from a scrupulous point of view, the belief system of your therapist is not the issue. Their expertise in OCD treatment is really the issue. And that's what you really want to make sure is happening, is that they have got an expertise in obsessive compulsive disorder. So, Steve, I hope that helps a little bit. Stephanie says, can delaying compulsions reduce OCD symptoms before ERP? Does OCD come and go, wax and wane? It can wax and wane. You can see it kind of going up and down. Delaying compulsions is always a great step that I have a lot of people doing that as well, too. It's a really great way to start challenging the OCD and to learn that, look, I waited 5 minutes and nothing bad happened. What if I waited 10 minutes? What if I wait 20 minutes? What if I wait an hour? What if I wait 3 hours? What if I wait a day? What if I wait a week? What if I wait a month? What if I just don't do it? Right? That would be the goal. And you start small and you kind of build up and you grow that over time. Kayla says, not today, Satan, not giving into this compulsion. Okay, bye. Thanks, Kayla. Good to see you on here, as always. Callie says, my harm OCD is always trying to answer why someone would do violent things. And it makes me anxious because the question is, what if I become like that? And sometimes it feels like I am my worst fear. Why? Well, Kelly, I can just and for all of you, I can make no guarantee that to any of you that you will never be violent. Right? I can absolutely not make that guarantee. Some of you have heard the story that I've told before. I won't go deeply into it, but you know that I got to a point once where I was amazingly violent against someone because someone attacked my family. Now, I don't know why they did what they did, but I know how I responded to it. And I'm, at this point in my life, thankful that 4 police officers happened to be driving down the street at the time all this was occurring, because my one thought after this person knocked my mother down was, I'm going to kill you. And I made every effort to do that. Luckily, the police came by and stopped all of that from happening. So Callie, guess what? I make no guarantee that you or I will never be violent. I also have no idea why people do some of the things that they do. Even as a psychologist doing this for 22 years, I still am nowhere closer to understanding necessarily why someone might do some of the things that they do, other than the decision they made at the time that they made it seemed to be the best decision to make, and that's what they did, right? So if violence seemed to them to be the best thing to do at the time, that's what they did. But Kelly, here's what I also know, because I've stood with someone who has OCD at the edge of a train platform with them behind me, with my hands behind my back for 3 hours, telling them to push me into every train that came by. And never once did they do it, even though they kept having the images and the impulse to do such a thing. So I in fact, Kelly, would feel safer, probably, well, no, guaranteed. Kelly, would feel safer with you behind me, telling you to push me into a train, than I would with somebody who didn't have OCD. I'd much rather have you, Kelly, behind me with me yelling at you to push me into a train than someone who didn't have OCD, because I trust you more than someone who doesn't have OCD to not harm me, right? But you now have the what if question in there, which is, what if I become like that? And sometimes it feels like I am my worst fear. Now, OCD, this is a great OCD trick to get you to feel as if you are something that you are not. And you can do that with OCD. OCD has the ability to do that without ever having any proof whatsoever. So I could say, Kelly, what is the proof that you are the worst thing that you're afraid your OCD will become? Well, I have none other than it feels as if I am. So now we got to go to, it feels like. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, what just a generically dumb statement it feels like is that an OCD loves it, right? And I don't mean that about you or anyone who uses it, but I want you to recognize what I'm talking about. It feels as if is not, it is. There's a huge difference there. And OCD knows this, and OCD is very good with language. So OCD doesn't say, you are this thing, right? OCD says, it feels as if I am this thing. It feels as if I'm going to do these things, right? OCD very much knows how to select language. So you even wrote that right here. And sometimes it feels like I am. You didn't say, sometimes I am my worst fear. You said, sometimes it feels like I am. And that's because OCD works in the emotion center of your brain and can get you to feel all sorts of things, right? OCD can get you to feel as if you don't, let's just say, raise your hand 3 times, that something horrible will happen to your mother. And it feels so real. And the anxiety and the discomfort that you feel is so overwhelming and so amazing that what do? You do it just to make sure, just in the off chance, just in case, right? Now, do you have to do it? No. Did it actually do anything to protect your mother? Absolutely not. There's no relation between the two of those things whatsoever. Just like me doing this did not just cause the house across the street to fall over. But my OCD could tell me, but what if it does? Maybe you should now wave your hand backwards the other way in order to undo it. Well, guess what? I'm not going to do that. Even if I had OCD and it was telling me to do that, I would know that that was a compulsion, and that doing that wouldn't serve any purpose other than strengthening my OCD. So, Callie, you have everything in here that I love to see in an OCD question. You say your harm OCD is always trying to answer why, which, of course, when you have OCD, you'll never come up with an answer, because OCD is the doubting disorder, and the doubting disorder will never accept an answer for something because it will doubt everything. So that's problem number 1. It makes me anxious, right? So OCD loves to do that, loves to make you feel these things, right? And then there's a what if statement in there, and then there's a it feels like statement, right? Kelly, classic example, and I'm just going to show this to everybody too, so everybody sees it. So my harm OCD is always, there's an all or nothing word, right? Trying to answer why someone would do violent things. Trying to answer, well, we're never getting an answer again, because OCD is the doubting disorder. We're never to come with an answer that we agree with. It makes me anxious, right? Because it's located in that area of the brain where we have a lot of emotions and feelings. Because the question is, what if? There's the what if statement that we see all the time. I become like that, and sometimes it feels like I am my worst fear. Why? Because OCD loves statements like it feels like, and looks at I feels like as truth when it's not, but it makes you feel as if it is. Okay. Allie A says, what should we do for moral OCD? Can constantly neutralizing our negative characteristics with our positive characteristics be a compulsion? 100% absolutely yes, that is a total compulsion. For example, I say I'm a loser and this at this, and then I'm good at this, and so on. Yes, that is a compulsion, Allie. What I want you to do is to recognize that even if you do tell yourself you're a loser, you don't have to pay attention to it. You don't have to be at all concerned about it. It doesn't mean that it's real, and you can just move on and kind of go forward without having to give that the time of day. But what do we do with moral OCD? We recognize that our OCD will always be telling us, you might have harmed that person, all right? You might have hurt their feelings. You might have done something that was morally or ethically untenable to them. Doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean it's real, but you can really hold on to it and believe it that way, right? And that's something that I want you to recognize, Allie, is the case. Angela says, what's my first step to overcoming harm OCD? Angela, the first step is to find a great therapist who specializes in OCD and can help you with exposure and response prevention therapy. That's what I want you to do, Angela, is to do that. That is your first step. Now, Angela, if you don't have good education about OCD, then I want you to really get some good education about OCD as well. Here comes the shameless self-promotion part of today's talk. I wrote a book called the OCD Answer Book. Got lots of great answers in Q&A about what is OCD. So if you need that, so a book like that can be very helpful. There's tons of other great books out there too. I just happen to have mine on my desk, right? So that's one thing. But number two, Angela, the most important thing is going to be this. Make sure, Angela, that you get yourself a really well-trained exposure and response prevention therapist so that they can walk you through really good treatment for harm, obsessive compulsive disorder. They're going to work with you on creating a hierarchy of things you're afraid of, and then they're going to slowly do ERP with you to help you overcome your fears and learn that you can handle whatever the thoughts or the images or urges are that pop in your head, and you don't have to believe them to be true. Kells R says, I struggle a lot to believe that strong urges to think sinful thoughts are just my OCD and not temptations, especially since I feel like I give into those urges to think those bad things sometimes. Excuse me. So, Kels, what is the struggle? Why would that be a struggle for you? I have an idea why, but I want everyone to think about it for a minute. I'll put this one up here so everybody can see it. You struggle a lot to believe that strong urges to think sinful thoughts are just your OCD and not temptations, especially since you feel like you give into those urges to think those bad things sometimes. Well, Kels, everybody thinks quote unquote bad things sometimes. Everybody thinks quote unquote good things sometimes. Everybody thinks quote unquote neutral things sometimes. We all think things all the time, Kels. I would contend there's no such thing as a good thought or a bad thought or anything of that nature. And here's the issue. I'm going to bet you this, Kels. Due to the nature of your scrupulous OCD, you're probably spending a lot of time telling yourself not to think certain things. Your very attempt to not think certain things is going to be the very thing that leads you to think the things. So, Kels, and everyone else, we haven't brought my friend out for a while, but here we go. Kels, don't think about my pink elephant. Okay. Kels, have no pink elephant thoughts whatsoever. Do not think about this pink elephant at all, Kels. I bet there was a strong kind of push there to think about the pink elephant. Now, even if I did that with people who didn't have OCD, they would think about the pink elephant. So if people who don't have OCD, once they're told not to think of something, imagine people with OCD who have OCD that's constantly telling them in their head, hey, remember, Kels, don't think about this. This is bad. Do not think this thought at all, Kels. It is a bad thought. OCD has a nasally voice, by the way. So don't think about it, Kels, at all. Don't think about the bad sinful thoughts. They're bad, right? And you're going to be like, well, of course, now I've just thought them. And then you're going to sit there and you're going to debate yourself. And that debate's going to be, did I want to think that? Maybe I did want to think that. What if I did want to think that? What does that say about me as a person who wanted to think that? Maybe they're not thoughts. Maybe they're temptations. Maybe I'm being tested. Maybe I like those thoughts. Maybe I want those thoughts. Oh my gosh. Now I've got to go through and I've got to do all these other things to undo it. Just in case, just on the off chance, that's the way that it is. So, Kels, to me, what you're describing there sounds a great deal like OCD. But I want you to be careful of always having to tell yourself something's just your OCD too. I don't want that to become a compulsion. So, Kels, I want you to recognize that when those kind of thoughts pop into your head, you actually need not give them any attention whatsoever. You don't have to undo them. I'm going to bet if you believe that there is a higher power, that you also believe that that higher power is quite intelligent, maybe even all-knowing. If that higher power is all-knowing, then that higher power knows what OCD is. And therefore, no need to send them a reminder constantly that, oh, wow, by the way, I didn't mean that, right? They already know what OCD is. I was doing a supervision earlier today, Kels, and why would we have somebody who has these kinds of thoughts purposely think them? For this very reason. Imagine you are in a flood, Kels, and you have prayed to your higher power. And your higher power has heard you. And so an RV, or a Humvee comes and says, get in the Humvee. But you, Kels, say, oh, no. I have prayed to my higher power, and I am waiting for them to save me. I am waiting for the miracle. And so they drive off. 3 hours later, a boat comes and says, Kels, get in the boat. And you say, oh, no. I have prayed to my higher power. I am waiting for my higher power to save me. I am waiting for the miracle. 2 hours later, you're on your roof. A helicopter comes and lowers a ladder down. Grab the ladder, Kels. And you say, oh, no. I have prayed to my higher power. And I have been assured that I will be rescued and that there will be a miracle that will happen. And 2 hours later, Kels, you're drowned. And now you're in heaven, and St. Peter's there. And St. Peter says, I already know. You're pissed. I get it. You want to talk to God. He's aware. She's aware. Whatever. Over there in the office on the left. You go in. Say, hey, I prayed. You promised to save me. Where was my miracle? And you're met with, well, I sent you a Humvee, and I sent you a boat, and I sent you a helicopter. What else did you need? And Kels, is it possible that instead of kind of looking at all these things as being bad or awful or horrible, that you do recognize them as OCD, and instead of doing a compulsion to neutralize them, you just move on and you allow yourself to realize those things don't actually have to mean anything. I give them meaning, but they don't actually have to have a meaning. They don't actually have to mean that I like them or I want them or anything else. And going forward, whenever those things pop in my head, I'm just going to move on. I'm just not going to give them the time of day, because you know what? They don't deserve it. They do not deserve the time of day. And so I'm no longer going to give it to them whatsoever. Reminder once again, tonight's webinar brought to you by NoCD. NoCD, a downloadable app you can get through Google Play or iOS. Please check us out. And we are available across the United Kingdom and the Canada and the Australia and also the United States of America, with more and more insurance companies covering us all the time. So come on over. Check us out. If you're looking for great teletherapy with great therapists who are highly trained and who do supervision with us and everything, we got you. John Griffin says, why doesn't my OCD theme ever change? You know, John, I also get the other question, which is, hey, why does my OCD theme change? So OCD will be OCD. I've treated people who've had the same kind of OCD for 30 years, and I've treated other people who have this for a while, and then that one for a while, and that one for a while. I can't guarantee that I know the answer to that, and I don't know that anybody does. What I do know is that, sometimes OCD finds what now seems to be, the grass is greener on the other side. There's something even more fearful to fear than I'll have. John, your OCD might have said, this really is the ultimate thing to be afraid of and why I have to focus on it all the time. But it doesn't mean that your OCD is weird or anything, John. It just, you have not found anything yet that is scarier to your OCD than the thing that your OCD is focused on. And that is why it stayed on that thing. Amelia said you've struggled with OCD since you were 7. Well, Amelia, I hope you'll reach out to us at NoCD and let us see what we can do to help you. Taylor says, what if I don't have OCD and it's something similar to OCD instead? Well, like what, Taylor? What would it be that would be similar? And even if it was similar and it wasn't OCD, we'd still use really great therapy to help you, Taylor. So check us out at NoCD and see what we can do. Because even if it's more of an anxiety disorder based thing and not necessarily an OCD thing, there's still really great exposure and response prevention therapies that can be very helpful to people in that case as well. Ariel says, any advice for being in social setting when you feel like crap because of intrusive thoughts, feelings, etc.? Yes, Ariel, stay in the situation. Don't escape. Don't run away. Allow yourself to remain there and learn, okay, I can handle this. I don't like it. It's not very comfortable, but I can handle this. That's what I need to do. And over time, Ariel, continuously doing that, you will learn, oh, well, I really can handle this. And then you will just not feel so crappy after a while, because it just won't be a big deal to you anymore, because you'll be like, yeah, there's that again. Okay, whatever. And you'll just kind of dismiss it and move on. And that'll be great. But if you leave the social situations because you're not feeling great, you're going to teach yourself the only way to get through social situations is to leave them. And that's not what we want to do. Nick B says, hey, Dr. McGrath. Hey, Nick B. I'm wondering how you approach changing someone's core beliefs. Do you think they're often the problem with OCD? Thanks as always. Good question, Nick. There's a lot of ways to go with that. And I don't know that I've necessarily tried to focus on changing people's core beliefs as much as I've tried to get them to recognize that just because they believe it doesn't mean it's true. Okay. So your belief may say this thing or that. Your core belief may be, I would be better off in an institution than I would be allowed to drive. Someone I've treated in the past who actually called the police on herself and put herself in jail because she had heard that there had been a hit and run, even though her car didn't match the description or there was no damage to her car. And frankly, she'd not even driven that day. But to her, it was just better to maybe be in jail and away from society than it was to be around people. Now, I can tell you that by the time we completed therapy, there was still that semblance of belief in there that deep down, I could be a really awful, horrible person. And I said to her, yeah, I mean, it is a possibility, right? I'm going to go with it's really low probability because I haven't seen you actually do any of those things, but it is a possibility. So here's the thing. I didn't look at successful therapy with her as the entire elimination of the belief that she couldn't be harmful to someone. I looked at successful therapy as her recognizing that she could harm someone and being okay with the fact that it was a possibility, but that it didn't have to interfere with her life and stop her from doing any of the things that she wanted to do. Okay. Now, core beliefs can be tricky. If any of you are a fan of a team that your best friend cannot stand and they like a team that you can't stand, have you ever been able to talk each other out of liking the other one's team? Probably not. Can you still remain friends with that person even though they like a team that you hate? Most likely. Do you have to change their core belief about their team? Or is that thing just a little part of them and doesn't speak for everything about them? Hopefully. Is this one belief that OCD holds on to, is that the total descriptor of you overall? Absolutely not. Therefore, do I totally have to change that thing? Or can I get you to recognize that that's just one belief? But again, there's probably hundreds of thousands of other beliefs that you hold on to as well, too. And why has this one become the most important one? And can you maybe recognize that you actually don't have to pay so much attention to it? It could be there, right? And hopefully over time it will change and it will alter. But I also am not necessarily going to look at the 100% elimination of a belief about something is the only way to have successful therapy. I know that OCD is the doubting disorder, and therefore I know that I will never be able to 100% get you to recognize that, oh yeah, this thing's fine, right? Because you probably always hold on to, but what if? But even though you have that, doesn't mean that you have to pay attention to it. Because you can have that, yeah, but what if? And then answer that with, oh, OCD, you tricky little fool, now you go back to bed. And then you move on with your life, right? And that's where I think you can really get to good stuff, is being okay with the fact that even if there's a semblance of something there, it doesn't have to mean that you've failed in treatment or that everything's going to spring back up or anything like that. It just means that now you've learned to not pay so much attention to that thing anymore, and you can move on. So Nick, I hope that helps. Jeans or Jean Carlos says, what should I do if I suffer from memory hoarding? I tend to write what people tell me, what I hear, and so on. We see this a lot, actually. And so what I would do is I would, again, first find yourself a good therapist who can help you with this, because there are good ways to assist people through this. I would have you practice doing a conversation with somebody and then repeating to them what was in the conversation without writing it down. And you can build off of that. You can hear a song and hum it back to somebody. And I would do this in therapy with people if I was with them, if they had these kinds of issues. And I would see, well, you have the ability to retain some things, right? So do you need to retain everything, right? Probably not. And how do you feel when you don't retain everything, when you don't write everything? And then let's sit with that discomfort of not having written everything down and allow that to habituate, allow that to fade over time, and recognize that, guess what? I don't know anyone else who writes down absolutely everything that everyone says, and they appear to be functioning very well. Now, my OCD may send lies to me, which is, well, they just have better memories than you do, and they know how to function better than you do, and all these kinds of things. So I want to challenge that. And you're never going to get to a point of challenging that, though, if you keep on writing everything down, because you're just going to keep being able to say to yourself, well, the only reason why I'm able to do anything or function is because I write everything down. So, John Carlos, I would want to work with you on getting to the point of recognizing and doing some exercises to recognize that I can start to do things, I can function, and I can do that without writing everything down. And therefore, I don't actually have to do everything that my OCD wants me to do. So I would build a program around that for you if you were working with me. Lily says, I'm dealing a lot with pure OCD and intrusive thoughts. I find myself unable to stop focusing on my vision and have fears of going blind. So that sounds like a somatic kind of OCD where people are very much focused on a bodily experience like breathing or blinking or vision or hearing or something of that nature. Lily, one of the things I might do with you, I'd put it on your hierarchy, is at some point, you might even wish to go blind, right? Might even say, all right, I'm going to do it right now. May I go blind in the next 5 seconds? I can tell Charles is the next question and says he was recently hired at a church. So I can still read, even though I had that intrusive thought or that intrusive urge or image that was coming on. My fears of something happening don't guarantee the thing happening, really. And that's what I want you to really work on and recognize, and really work with a therapist on as well, too, is that my OCD may have said to me, the ultimate awful, horrible thing in the world would be to lose my vision. All right, I got to do a nasal. The ultimate horrible thing would be to lose my vision. And therefore, I need to focus constantly on my vision to make sure that I'm not losing my vision. And if I don't focus on my vision and I don't notice that I'm losing my vision, then my vision will go away because I didn't notice it. But if I'm noticing that I'm losing my vision, then I can do something to prevent it or stop it. Right? Now, Lily, let me change it. I know how to walk. I will be walking away from here, and I will walk upstairs and go make dinner after this. Do I need to focus on my walking? Or if I don't focus on my walking, will I just fall over? I never really focused on my walking as I go up and down the stairs. So I have the ability to use my body in such a way that there's just muscle memory and it functions, right? I don't need to think about things. In fact, one of the things that there's one interesting theory about OCD, which says that the brain is really good at really filtering out almost everything into the ability to just let it pass by without having to pay a lot of attention to it. And then there are some things that pass through that get a lot of attention paid to them. And maybe one of the problems with OCD is that OCD pulls things that would normally, for most people, go in the don't need to pay a lot of attention to this part of the brain. And it pulls those things into the you better pay a lot of attention to this part of it. And that right there might very well be some of the problem that people are experiencing. So, Lily, here's what I want you to do. I want you to maybe make a loop tape or sing a song or something like that. And I'm not saying this to distract. I have a point here, Lily, which is I want you to do that while walking down the street. And I want you to put as much focus as you can on doing that, like singing that song that's in your earbuds and walking and everything like that. And I want you to do it to allow yourself to recognize you do have the ability to focus on other things other than just your vision. And once you're able to recognize that you can do that, I think what you're going to start to be able to do is go back to the way that you used to deal with your vision, which is to not care at all about your vision, because your vision is just your vision and it's just there until it's not there, right? If there comes a point, Lily, in your life where there's going to be something that's going to be happening to your vision, you will notice it without having to be focused on it. I'll give you an example of my own life. A couple of weeks ago, my thumb was just killing me. And I know in my family there's arthritis, right? So I hit 50 and, falling apart. But there was one day where just suddenly my hand was hurting and just right around my thumb and everything like that. So, I've got some stuff to put on there and I've got my arthritis stuff that I can take. It's much better now. But Lily, should I have been focusing on my hand prior to that so that I would have noticed it? Or did I just notice it when I went down to the computer and started typing? I noticed it. And I didn't need any focus on it prior to that. I just did notice it, right? So it's almost, Lily, what you're experiencing is a doubt in your own ability to be able to recognize if something's going wrong. So therefore, you have to bring it into conscious awareness to always be looking to see if something might be going wrong. Because if you're not looking to see if something might be going wrong and it does go wrong, it'll just come out of the blue, surprise you, and then something bad will happen. But I contend, Lily, you don't need to do that, and work with a therapist on that who can help you get through that so that you don't have to keep doing what you're doing. Charles said, I was recently hired at a church. I didn't realize until after I accepted the job that I have to agree to their doctrinal statement completely, but I don't. Is it lying to sign it? Small differences. Charles, I think that's a very personal kind of decision. I know lots of people who are of a certain religion who don't believe every kind of doctrinal statement completely. And I know certain clergy who don't even follow every doctrinal statement completely in the own religion that they are up there preaching about on a weekly basis as well, too. So, Charles, this is your decision. Now, you may look at this, is that morally wrong or ethically wrong or even religiously wrong to be lying like that or something? And you have to make the decision on the small differences. But Charles, I know people who go to a college in Illinois where they have to sign that kind of statement. that says, they won't drink and they won't smoke and they won't swear and they won't do these things. Who do those things, right? Should they remove themselves from that college? I'll let others make that decision. I'm not going to make that decision or tell anybody that they have to do that or not, because to me, that's none of my business, right? But OCD will say, of course, oh, well, but wait a minute. If you're signing that and you're not 100% completely along every doctrine, then, you have to quit the job. Or Charles, what if in the future you accidentally do something that goes against the doctrine? You didn't even mean to do it, but you go against it. Do you have to show up at work the next day and say, I'll be resigning now because last night I accidentally did something that was anti-doctrinal to this church, and so now I will have to leave it? If that's the case, Charles, guess what? I'm going to bet there's only about 4 people that would remain in that church, if that many, right? Because nobody's perfect at this. And your OCD is going to tell you have to be perfect at it. But I would contend that nobody really is able to do such a thing. Hello, Kaylee. Welcome back. Elizabeth says, can OCD make you feel nothingness? Of course, OCD can lead you to feel anything that it wants you to feel. So no doubt about it. I feel like since doing mindfulness so much, I feel nothing or flatline. And I also feel angry a lot easily when people annoy me and go from a 1 to 10 instantly. So, Elizabeth, here's what I want you to do. How much more mindfulness do you need to do? I'm not saying this to knock mindfulness. I've got no problem with mindfulness whatsoever. But if you're noticing that it's leading you to that, maybe switching over now to some good ERP is going to be good for you to really work on sitting with whatever uncomfortable emotions you might have. And if people are annoying you that fast, I would work on exposing you to things that might be annoying for you to learn how to handle them in a better way than you're handling them. So that's where I would go with it if I was working. Rebecca says, hi, when the anxiety around the intrusive thoughts fade away, will the thoughts themselves begin to fade away? Typically they do, but just be ready for the backdoor spike, which will say, Rebecca, oh, now you're not afraid of those anymore. That must mean you like them. What kind of horrible, awful person are you, Rebecca, for liking those thoughts? This is bad, right? Yeah. Now, just know that OCD does that, and that's just part of its stupid trickery that it tries to do, but you don't have to believe it at all whatsoever, okay? Lily says, I need to know where everything is at all the time. Not the important items, but the worthless ones. I need to know what happened to them if I cannot find them. Okay. Well, sounds like great ERP to me to do, to not go looking for things and to be able to sit in the discomfort of not knowing where everything is at and allow yourself to learn how to handle that without going through and doing the compulsion. Because as long as you keep checking for them and doing the compulsion, you're always going to be worried about where those things are at. And your OCD is always going to keep telling you, you need to know, because if you don't know, something bad or awful or horrible is going to happen. So Lily, starting tonight, I don't want you searching for things, and I want you just to be comfortable not knowing or maybe knowing where they are. James says, I'm going to the doctor's next week to finally get help for my OCD. What should I expect? Well, I hope you expect somebody who's very respectful of you and is going to get to know you and know what's going on with you. And James, please be very forthright with what's going on with you as well, too, so that they will be able to help you in the best way possible. Will D says, how many exposures should someone with harm OCD be practicing per day? Kind of depends, Will. I mean, as you're starting off, it might be a couple of them. And as you get more and more into it, it might be more and more. I look at it less about how many to do. And I look at it more of how many do I need to keep doing until I just don't get a spike from doing it anymore. Some people might be able to do that after 3 times. Some people might take 10. It just kind of depends. So if the initial spike is like up here and then it takes a while to come down, the next one is here and the next one is here, I like to get it to the point where I'm just getting no spike. I walk in, I do the thing, nothing comes out of it. All right, maybe I'm not so bothered by it anymore. Awesome. Maybe I can move on to the next one. But each one might take a different number of times to get there than the previous one did. Jeff says, should someone be in recovery before providing support? Interesting question. I guess it depends on what you see recovery is, right? If you're looking at recovery as I never have an OCD issue, then nobody would be providing support, because I know people with OCD who are therapists who still deal with some of their OCD stuff going on. Shala Nicely is a friend of mine, and if you look at her work, she always talks in her Shoulders Back newsletter that she puts out, that what are the struggles that continue of OCD. And she wrote a book called Is Fred in the Refrigerator, where she's very open and honest about all the things that are going on in her life, and how she works with people who have OCD, but also challenges her OCD on a daily basis as well too. Just don't ever drive with her. She's one of the scariest drivers I've ever driven with my life. And I love you, Shala, to death, but oh my gosh. And I'm an anxiety therapist too. So yeah, I think that, you want someone who has gone through a level of ERP, hopefully with OCD, and knows how to face their fears and could be helpful with you. And when you're talking support, I think there's so many ways people provide support too. There's people who do therapy with you. There's people who encourage you. There's people who send you a message once in a while and just say, I hope things are going well. There's lots of ways of providing that support as well too. So all of it kind of just depends, I suppose. Yager says, hello, Yager. Ashley asks, can you please help me with an issue I'm having? I'm going to try. I worry I might be tempted by the devil in the presence of any number that is triple digits. If the clock shows 3 same numbers, I get thoughts I'm bad. Okay. Ashley, what proof do you have that that's the case? That would be the first question that I would ask. What proof do you have that that's the case, right? Now, obviously, that's probably coming from 3 6s, where a lot of people are afraid of those types of things. But you're looking at it now as 3 1s or 3 2s or 3 3s or 3 4s or whatever, and on and on. So Ashley, give me the proof that that's actually the case, that 3 numbers on the clock is something that is being used by the devil to tempt you. Now, you're not going to be able to give me that proof. I'm going to just throw it out there right off the bat. That's not going to happen. But you're going to say to me, but what if, right? But it feels like, and we're going to go back to the things that we talked about earlier. You can have all sorts of what ifs and it feels likes that you want, but those are not proofs, right? Those are not things that are rather definitive. And those would not stand up in a court of law. I mean, imagine, Your Honor, I would like to sue this manufacturer of this clock for having it digital, and at times it shows 3 of the same number in a row, and that is the devil. Okay. Miss Ashley, thank you for bringing this case to our attention. Can you give us the proof that that's the case? Yes, Your Honor. My brain tells me that that's the case, and it feels that way. Miss Ashley, we will need more proof than that in order to convict. What is the actual proof of there being a devilish connection to 3 numbers of the same number in a row on a clock? Well, I don't have any, Your Honor, but I know I feel uncomfortable when I see it, and I worry that it is a sign of the devil, and therefore it must be, because why else would I think that? And you should sue these clockmakers and take them down. Case is dismissed, Miss Ashley. Apologies, but that is not going to stand up in court. Now, I would want to purposely expose you to those 3 numbers all the time, and I would probably even put them, on my screen or draw them or something like that, so that or hold up a little sign during sessions of 3 numbers in a row, just to get you used to them, Ashley, so that you would recognize that though those thoughts may pop into your head that there's a devil connection to that, it doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it real. And you would, over time, hopefully be able to be like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'm good. I can move on from that. Elizabeth asked, should I plan exposures every day, and would you write them in a notebook? I would love to see people do ERP every day, and you could write them down, or you could use the NoCD app if that's what you're doing with NoCD therapy. The app's there. So yeah, there's lots of options, but I think consistent practice every day is a very, very good thing. I went to see Eric Johnson in concert once. He's an amazing guitar player, and actually had a little chance to chat with him. I'm one of those guys that goes after the show and tries to get autographs. And he talked about practicing for hours every day. So here's a guy on tour who's opened for bands like Rush, the greatest band in the history of the entire world, and who's then gone out and done their own tour and everything like that, who still practices for hours and hours a day at his craft, right? So, yeah, practice, do ERP, make it a part of your life. It's going to help you. Pudding Cakes, hello, good to see you. Welcome, glad to have you here. Badam says, according to my logical sense, logical, there we go. Well, we know that OCD loves to have its own form of logic, right? So according to your logical sense and observation, you're agnostic, but highly scared. If God really exists, I would get punishment for being skeptical about his existence. I may lose my loved ones. I was just discussing this today, actually, Badam, because I was talking to people about the fact that the IOCDF, the International OCD Foundation, just announced a conference on faith and mental health and OCD. And so I think everybody ought to take a look at it because it could be very cool for those of you who have scrupulosity. And yours truly will be speaking at it. And I will be talking very specifically about this issue because nobody talks enough about this. This idea that people who don't have necessarily a belief system in a higher power or something like that can still have moral or ethical scrupulosity and religious scrupulosity, being afraid of, but what if I'm wrong? And what if there is a God? And what if I'm punished? And what if, and what if, and what if, and all these kinds of things. And so people who say to me, I have no belief in any higher power whatsoever, but I do all these prayers every night just on the off chance I'm wrong, right? Maybe it's better, maybe it's safer to do that than not do it. So here's what I need you to do, Madam. I need you to work on, if your conviction is that you're not a believer, then these prayers are compulsions. Even if you were a believer and you were doing prayers all the time because every time you had a quote unquote bad thought, you thought you had to pray in order to undo it, that'd be a compulsion too. So prayer can be a compulsion. And what I would want you to do is to work on, we're going to have you decrease some of those types of things and making sure that you're not doing any other kinds of compulsions that would maintain the scrupulous OCD that you have, even if you're not a believer, which you can absolutely be a non-believer and still have scrupulous OCD, which blows the mind of some people, but it is absolutely 100% true. Jem back again. Hi, Jem. How can I be more compassionate with myself about my progress and feeling like I need to do it better and faster? First of all, Jem, I love to be a cheerleader and celebrate people's accomplishments. So, Jem, what I want you to do is I want you every day to just take a moment and celebrate what worked out well that day. Okay? And just honor the fact that you did something that went well that day. And then I want you to say, okay, what am I going to improve upon tomorrow? So guess what? You can both do well and still improve all at the same time. Just because something might be able to be improved on doesn't mean it was bad. You might have done amazingly well and could still make improvements. This is why professionals have coaches, right? Why would a professional baseball team need a hitting coach and a catching coach and a pitching coach? These guys are pros. They're making millions of dollars because they can still do things to potentially improve. And that's where the coaches come in to help with that. All right. So that's what I want you to do, Jen. Take a moment, acknowledge your greatness, the stuff that you did that really was helpful. And then the next thing you do is take a look at, all right, tomorrow, from a positive point of view, what am I going to do to improve upon everything that I've already done today? Because today was awesome and tomorrow can be just even a little bit better. Well, everyone, once again, you've spent an hour of your life with me, and I highly appreciate that. As always, it's been a blast, and I thank you for being with me, and I look forward to seeing you all again next year. I want to thank, as always, our amazing theme songwriter, Paul Melia, for his wonderful, wonderful song, Hold On to the Colors. We love you, Paul. Hope you're doing well over there in Ireland. Have a great, great weekend, everyone, and be safe. And we wish nothing but the best to your relatives and friends who might find themselves in harm's way or in conflict. All the best, everybody.
Try to break through the best time